Welcome, everyone. I'd like to introduce to you Rhonda Dickens. She's an outpatient psychotherapist, and I have learned that what I think on, the experiences I had, all the input develops memory in my neural memory. And it can be positive or it can be negative. So if we've had experiences or we constantly are thinking on the negative, the destructive, the fearful, the harmful, we are developing a fear-based memory. How can we be healed from that?
I think that one of the first steps to healing from that is listening to your question, because there are a lot of people that don't even know that that's a thing. A lot of people that don't know that. I'm going to do a correlation between our bodies and computers, and how computers run, and how it just keeps this consistent memory of everything that you do. And so, my computer is so smart that it scares me sometimes, because there is a word that I write in my clinical notes that I always misspell. And so now it's at a point where as soon as I start spelling it out, it just spells it correctly, right? That is computer memory. The same thing happens with your body. Your body keeps the score of your thoughts. It keeps the score of your experiences. It keeps the score of your mindset. It keeps the score of your ups and downs. And what it's doing is the same thing that a computer is doing. It's trying to figure out your patterns. It's trying to predict who you are. And what it does is it uses that positively or negatively, right? And so sometimes we're giving ourselves the power to be in a negative mood, because our body has picked up in all the times that we're complaining about our lives, that it's almost like the placebo effect when, people would say that they're sick and then they begin to become sick. Or people would say that they wanted to be healed and they would give them a drug that had absolutely nothing to do with what they were healing. And all of a sudden, the body would begin to heal itself. And so I think that it's very important to know that when creating the right decision, the body can heal itself. So I do want to say that. But I also want people to understand that the body is keeping record of everything that's happening. And the same way that you program it, or someone has programmed it to negativity, it can be reprogrammed to positivity. I like to tell my clients all the time, they hate it. They hate it, because sometimes they just want to come in the office and say, I'm sad, I'm upset, I'm having these self-defeating beliefs about myself. And as soon as they say it, I say, tell me 2 positive things. If you say one negative thing about yourself in my office, you have to counter it with 2 positive things. But I do that so that you can get into the rhythm of deprogramming yourself. Because if you say one negative thing and then you have to say 2 positive things afterwards, your body is going to begin to program more of the positivity than it is the negativity. And so the same way that we write and imprint these negative things upon our lives, we can do the exact same thing with positive things. But the healing part of it is literally reprogramming the way you think, reprogramming the way that you react to things, understanding your emotional triggers. Huge. Understanding your emotional triggers, the power that they have over you, and reprogramming what that looks like for you. And so it literally goes down to, just like the computer scenario, reprogramming it, getting the viruses out. What does that mean? That is not meaning sickness. That means if your virus is, I think that I'm incapable of doing something, getting that virus out and filling that up with, I can do all things, all things, all things. It's a simple shift in mindset that will take you from not prospering to full-blown success. And that's literally believing in you. That goes back to the hope being the precedent of the faith, and the faith being the precedent of your destiny, and the destiny being the precedent of your legacy. You have to have those things, and not just on paper, internally. You have to believe those. And so
in our humanity, we have the power to do that.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And no other human being or no circumstance can take away our power if we really desire to reprogram our neural networking.
Absolutely. I had a client once, and she was young, and she would come into my office. She was new with me, and one of the reasons that she was seeing me is because she was having some problems in school. And so she would come and she would see me, and I would say, hey, you're really smart. Like, why are you having these issues in school? And she was like, I'm not smart, I'm stupid. And I was like, well, what makes you think that? And so, we kind of got down to the root of why she thought that. And so I immediately changed my language with her. Every time she would walk into my office, I would call her little genius. I would call her smart. I would call her all of these things. And I did this all the way up until it was time for their final exams. And she comes into the session the day that she took the final exam, right? So my nerves are on edge because I'm like, did this work? But she comes into my office the day of the final exams, and I'm like, hey, well, do you know when you're going to get your scores back? And she was like, I already did, but she was really quiet. And so I'm like, oh gosh. She was like, I already did. And I said, well, how did you do? And she said, I passed, I'm a genius. And so just her being able to believe that, because, she was on a path of, I don't know if you guys know what this is, but IEPs and, all of these individualized plans, not because she didn't understand the information, but she wired and programmed herself to believe that she was stupid because that's what was put into her from a very young age. And so she functioned on a below average level. She thought that she was below average. It took not a few sessions, but months of being able to speak into her that her entire academic history changed. Imagine what would happen if we did that on a large level in every aspect of our lives.
Wow, that is powerful.
Sometimes we rob ourselves of our own joy. And I know it's not intentional. It's just not having the tools to reprogram.
And we carry the ability to be hope generators in our world.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what you are, and that's what you're bringing today.
Thank you,
Rhonda.
Thank you for having me.